Evening everybody, and welcome to the Constitutional Review Working Party. Any members of the public present? No, so we can ignore saying welcome to them. Fire evacuation procedure. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices via the stairs, either through the security door or opposite the lifts in the foyer. Please do not use the lift. The assembling hall is square on the green, and officers will assist you and advise when it's deemed safe to return. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? Any member of the public who objects? Would everyone please ensure their mobile phones are turned to silent and they are not used to make or receive calls in the chamber whilst the meeting is broadcast. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public, and except for items of business or exempt or confidential information is considered following the exclusion of the press and public from the meeting. This meeting is also being recorded and will be broadcast on the internet. Does any member wish to speak under Council Procedure Rule 20.1? Please now sit now. Are there any apologies for absence? Minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of February. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of February be approved and signed as a correct record. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Hart. Unless any objections to the minutes, I'll take them as agreed. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Item agenda 4, draft member parental leave policy. Mr. Hughes will now present the report.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'll briefly outline the report. So this is a proposed parental leave policy for councillors. Whilst there is no legal legislative requirement for us to do such a policy, it would be quite a progressive thing for the councillors to do, and one of the main aims is to reduce barriers to entry as councillors, effectively. And one of the things that we did find at the last election, or in the run-up to the last election, was people were very interested in removing those barriers and more so allowing a better family life balance between their private lives and their council lives. So whilst we are not legally required to have a policy, as I said, it would be quite a progressive thing to do, and outlined at 1.5 in the report as a couple of statistics from the Fawcett Society. So just 4% of local councils in England currently have a formal parental leave policy. And it also found that a third of female councillors of childbearing age found a lack of maternity leave to be a barrier to fulfilling their role. What we have done is create a number of options for members to have a look through to see whether any of them feel as if they are appropriate to be recommended onto the Standards Committee. One of the things that I should make clear about the report and the annexes is the annexes do refer to the split or the changes into allowances. They are only the changes to the special responsibility allowances. A member will always get their basic allowance, because just because you're pregnant or have a paternity leave doesn't mean to say you wouldn't be a councillor. You will stay being a councillor, and all the time you stay being a councillor, you're entitled to your basic allowance. So that will not change. The policy will only apply to special responsibility allowances. So just make that really clear. So what we will do is allow, as part of this policy, to have a blanket covering of an exemption from the sections of Local Government 72 Act that requires you to have been a councillor or had to attend a meeting for at least a 6-month period. So I'm not sure councillors are aware that you have to attend at least one council meeting within a 6-month period, otherwise you would be removed as councillor. So by adopting this policy, what we're suggesting is that a member wouldn't have to come to council to say, well, I'm pregnant or I want some paternity leave, please can I have an exemption from that 6-month rule, because that's not particularly effective use of council time and really shouldn't really be subject to a vote at a full council meeting. So by having this policy, this is effectively a blanket exemption from that. Well, exemption is probably not the right word. It's not really a exemption from the law. It's an automatic acceptance that that is a valid reason for not coming to a meeting within 6 months. Probably a better way of describing it. So that is the main element of it. With regards to the actual sort of financial elements of it, that's sort of outlined at paragraph, I think it's paragraph 4, isn't it? I think through, yeah, paragraph 4 of the annex of the actual report. So there are 3 options. So you have option 1, which is 10 weeks of SRA at 90% of what the earnings are per week, followed by 16 weeks at 50%, and then unpaid leave thereafter, up to 52 weeks. This is a very similar approach to the scheme that officers have. Not to say that it is based on that, but it's effectively a mirror image of it. The second option, which is in line with the current policy for MPs, is that you have 6 months full pay of their the special responsibility allowance, and then the rest of the time that they're off, up to 52 weeks, is unpaid. Or then the third option, which is in line with the draft model that the Local Government Association have created, is that the member who is on paternity or maternity leave receives full pay of their members' allowance, of their special responsibility allowance, throughout the whole of that period. So obviously that's slightly more generous. So you've got 3 levels of generosity, I think is probably not the best way of describing it, but 3 different options with various outlays there for members to have a look at. Yeah, that's pretty much it, really, unless there's anything else that Estelle wants to add to that, or no? Okay, so through you, Chair, I'll open it out to questions.
Anybody wish to make any comment? Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for explaining regarding the attendance with the, if you like, the constitutional requirements to attend one meeting. There's nowhere in it, though, that specifically mentions the override. I appreciate that you're saying that it does override the, but I can't actually find where there's a specific mention to it overriding the requirement for members to attend at least one meeting within a 6-month period. Might have missed that, but the other point is or the other question is, have other authorities, local authorities, adopted this, and if or are we the pioneers of it, which would be rather nice. But if we're not, what other authorities, which options have other authorities chosen?
Thank you. It's the paragraph at 1.8 at the annex, which effectively has that statement in it that says, because the council will have agreed this policy, it therefore allows anybody who is then taking leave as a result of maternity or paternity or shared parental adoption leave, effectively means that the council has granted anybody who then says that they are pregnant an exemption from that, or an extension, I think is probably a better word to use than an exemption, isn't it, probably? An extension to that 6-month period until such point as they come back, or where their leave finishes. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah, I would agree with you. We are certainly at the, I wouldn't say forefront, but we're certainly near the front of the train rather than at the end of the train with regards to where we are in relation to other councils in introducing such a policy. I know that I think there's a couple, Sunderland, Newcastle and Birmingham have all got policies, and I think there's one other council which I think, don't quote me, I think it's either Tunbridge or Tunbridge and, I can never remember which one, Tunbridge Wells or Tunbridge and Malling. I think, are one of the only other people in Kent who have got a policy like this. So we are quite near the forefront, which is quite a good thing to be. It's quite unusual for us to be quite so trailblazing, I think.
Anybody? Councillor Hart?
Thank you, Chair. Unless I've misread this, or I just skipped past it. Does this include children being adopted? And my other concern is that if it is done for councillors, one assumes that from the date that you incept it to the end of that 6 months, let's say, they cannot vote on anything. Thank you.
Sorry, so firstly, yes, it does apply to adoption, so it fully covers adoption leave as well. And with regards to voting, yes, you are right. Effectively, it is leave. It's effectively they won't be here for however long their parental leave lasts, and then they are effectively keep that role in abeyance. Effectively, they are still that cabinet member, for example, because to be honest, it's mostly going to be cabinet members or chairs of committees. So what would happen is that we would elect another person to be that, effectively take on that role for the period that the person is off on paternity leave, and they would also be entitled to the same allowance that the person, sorry, stupid mask, the same allowance that the person who is on leave is getting. Now, yes, that is more money, but there is enough money within the allowances budget to take that. And whilst there is, and it's perfectly reasonable to be concerned about the finances, I think it's unlikely that there would be such an influx of people wishing to take maternity or paternity leave that it would adversely impact the budget that we have available.
Councillor Hopkinson?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'd just like to commend the proposal in general, in particular because there's a problem nationally with attracting and retaining people in their 20s, 30s and 40s to be councillors in local authorities. So I think this is a really good step in terms of that. Can I just ask for clarification? Because if I understood right, you said that none of this, it wouldn't affect. This would only affect special responsibility allowances, but it wouldn't affect members' allowances at all. But I'm just looking at paragraph 4.1, because my understanding of option 1 is that it suggests that there is, with option 1, there would be a reduction in members' allowances during this period. Is that? So I'm not sure if. Did you mean that? Well, I just wanted to understand that basically.
Yes, that was what I was referring to at the start, which is that option 1 and option 2 refer to it being related to members' allowances when they shouldn't. It should only be relating to special responsibility allowances. You're right, as I say, the basic 4,500 and something or other pound, the basic allowance, everybody gets that irrespective, and you're not allowed to suspend elements of that at all. That's not on. You can't do that again. And just because somebody's on parental leave doesn't stop them being a councillor. They are a councillor from the moment they're elected to the time their 4-year period finishes. So they would get their basic allowance. Yeah, because we couldn't. Because yeah, if you think about it, if we did it as per this, you'd actually see a cut in. You'd actually be worse off than not telling us that you were pregnant, which is just, yeah, that wouldn't work. So yeah, so ignore the bit where it says members' allowances. It's just special responsibility allowances.
Anybody else got any comments to make? Mr. Welbeck?
Yeah, I don't know a great deal about the details of councillors' remuneration, but just as a general principle, from an outside point of view, I would have thought mimicking as much as possible the employees' arrangements for parental leave would be seen to be a good principle to adopt, rather than having something that is potentially worse or better off than the employees. So there's a degree of, I think, of equality amongst both members and officers.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rosetsky?
Yeah, I think looking at it, I would agree with the last speaker that we shouldn't be looking to get better than what the employees get. Looking at this 4.1, it mirrors the provision for staff. Even though they don't get statutory maternity pay, it's not. That's not. I don't think an issue. I don't think that's an issue. If they were in another employment, they will get their maternity pay from that in any case. So that's not an issue. I'd be inclined to vote for 4.1. So thank you.
Has anybody else got any comments they wish to make? In that case, can we first of all deal with option 1? Do members wish to make any recommendations to the Standard Committee in relation to option 1? Can I have a proposer, please?
Yeah, I'd like to propose option 1.
Sorry, do members agree? I think we might have to take a vote on that then. Right. Yeah, Councillor Hopkinson.
Thank you. Sorry, I think this is maybe I've misunderstood it, because I thought we were saying option 1 is not adequate, it's not accurately worded at the moment. So, because that's the one that's saying that there's a reduction to 90% of the members' allowance for the first 10 weeks, and then 50% in the later period, whereas we.
So yeah, so if I could suggest a slight tweak to the proposal to say that we recommend standards option 1 subject to the members' allowance, where the reference to members' allowances being deleted, because that I think would then resolve it, in the sense that we would saying that you'd get your basic allowance will just carry on, that will just happen, and then if you are entitled to then having a special responsibility allowance, you would get 90% of your special responsibility allowance for 10 weeks. After that, you'd then get 50% of your special responsibility allowance for another 16 weeks, and then you'd get unpaid. You'd stop getting your special responsibility allowance for that for the rest of the time that you are then on parental leave, up until a maximum of 52 weeks. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I'll amend my proposal to include that.
Can I just say, looking at the wording for that, and you may wish to, members want to amend it further, where it says 16 weeks at 50% of normal earnings, would it not be better worded 50% of SRA where applicable? Because you've already asked for members' allowances to be removed from the first bit. Reading the second bit is contradicting the first bit, if you follow me.
Yeah, that's agreed, Chair. I'm happy for that to be part of the proposal.
Councillor Hart?
Thank you, Chair. We're nitpicking. I just wonder if there should be a certain time you've been in that role before that becomes applicable. So, you know, you're not given that role, and then a day later you just say, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. And so therefore you have some sort of stabilising effect on the council as well as in your group. That was all.
I'm not sure you can do that legally.
I think I might ask Mr. Hughes to answer that one.
I might back that away to Estelle and say, well, I'm not sure that that's legal.
It is Queen's this week.
Oh, am I on?
Yeah.
I'm on. Sorry, was your question that somebody might be a bit devious and take the special responsibility allowance and then the day later say, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant? Sorry, directing to the wrong member. It's been a long day. I'm not sure there's any way you could counter against that, really. I think that might just be the way the cookie crumbles. In reality, it's unlikely to happen. In reality, this policy is unlikely to apply to that many people, and I should imagine if it does apply to anybody, it would well, I don't know, that might happen, but I think it's fairly unlikely. And I don't really think you could put anything in place to mitigate against it.
So, correct me if, sorry, Councillor Ashby.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in employment law, you would be in all sorts of bother if you started to try and word it around that, because it's obviously, and it's not also for ladies becoming pregnant. Also, this has got a paternity issue, and happen to know that one of my cabinet is expecting their first child, so he might be the first to recognise this. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that we need to be that prescriptive. I would just like to, if we could recap on the actual wording of what we're agreeing here. Thank you.
Can I, from what we've all just said then, option 1, 4.1, I think what Councillor Zetsky's saying is 10 weeks at 90% of average weekly earnings and special allowance were applicable, followed by 16 weeks at 50% SRA, followed by unpaid leave for any additional leave agreed up to 52 weeks. And this is a payment on a sliding scale for 6 months. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's correct.
Councillor Ashby?
Oh. I don't actually like the word earnings, because we don't have earnings. We are not PAYE. We do not get benefits for being PAYE. So, and I think to the general public, it's the wrong word to use. We have an allowance. So 10 weeks at 90% of average allowance, not members' allowance, but we should say SRA allowance. I mean, it's actually quite important. That word earnings, I don't think should be in there, because we don't earn. This is not an earning. This is purely a member's allowance. So, and it would be totally misconceived by the general public to think that we are. I mean, I appreciate this has probably been taken from a sort of standard employment type contracty thing, but members don't come under that type of contract. So I don't know quite how we're going to get around the wording, but I think, yeah.
Councillor Hopkins?
Thank you. So I know it's been suggested that option 1 is preferable, but I'm just wondering what is the rationale for wanting to reduce the allowance at first to 90 and then to 50%? Because without understanding that, it seems to me option 3 is preferable. So I just wonder if members have a rationale for why they would want that to be reduced.
Councillor Zetsky?
Yeah, I think the rationale was the fact that it is in line with what the staff get, rather than being someone special or anything like that. It was that the fact this is what the council staff get. We shouldn't be any different from them when we discuss our allowances, etc.
Councillor Hopkinson?
Okay, I understand. Yeah, but I wonder if I mean, it just seems to me that it's we should be deciding in terms of what's fair in terms of this policy, and if we're not saying that I mean, it's a kind of a race to the bottom idea, isn't it? If unless we're actually saying what we think happens to staff is particularly fair and in line with what we think should happen, then I don't know. Couldn't we just go by what we do think is fair for members, and given that we're not setting pay for staff, then I just wonder how relevant that is.
Yes, Estelle.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I have a view about this, if you don't mind, and I'm sorry, Nick, if it cuts across your view. I'm not sure we should actually compare this to members of staff, because members of staff have all sorts of other benefits through their employment, including a very good maternity and paternity leave package, including pay. And I wonder whether all the options are perfectly valid, but when I looked at this, I actually thought that option 2 sounded quite a good compromise, which was very straightforward, which is basically the pay that sits within the 6 months standard leave period, and then any further leave period after that would be by agreement. But actually, there's nothing wrong with option 3 as well, because the reality is there will be a cost to the council of this, but it's not likely to be a massive cost. And actually put together the basic allowance and the special responsibility allowance is probably not that much, relatively speaking, certainly for the amount that the councillors do, particularly if you have a special responsibility allowance and special responsibility. So, I mean, my view is that, well, any of the options are perfectly valid, but actually I thought, personally, and I know it's not my decision, that either option 2 or option 3 would be preferable. And I'm sorry, Nick, if that upsets you.
Councillor Hopkinson.
Yeah, I mean, I do take the point. It was a good point from Councillor Zeki, but I just want, a little bit concerned that it might undercut the point of the whole proposal, because reducing sorry, I'm just trying to get my screen back up so I can see it. Reducing it to 50%, that might be of concern to someone that's in that position, to the point where it poses them a financial problem, which is obviously what we're trying to avoid. So, and also particularly given the fact that, as has been said, it's unlikely that many people are going to be using this, it might be possible to, avoid undermining the purpose of the whole thing with option 2 or 3.
Okay, I think the sensible way to do it is we've got a proposer for option 1. I don't intend to take a vote as yet. Does anybody wish to speak on option 2? And we'll do the same process there if that is a proposer and seconder, and the same again with option 3. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, so option 1 is 4.1, option 2 is 4.1, and option 3 is 4.2. I'm a bit confused. Should that be 4.1, 4.2, 4.3? Just so that we are clear. And having listened to Estelle, I would be inclined, because I feel quite strongly about that we are not PAYE and we are not paid as such. It's not an earnings, it's a totally different sort of setup. And having listened to Estelle, I would be inclined to, because of this issue that I feel that could lead to, then I think option 2, which I believe should probably be 4.2, would be the easiest way and the fairest way. As Estelle quite rightly puts it, members we're on a totally different setup from staff. Staff on PAYE, they get sick pay, holiday pay, all sorts of, and obviously they have their paternity and maternity package. So I think Councillor Hopkins is quite right, is that we don't need to be kept comparing like for like, because it's not like for like. So I think in this option 2 would satisfy, I think, everything from that point of view. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, in that case, I don't know if you're happy with the suggestion I made. Is there a proposer for option 2? Councillor Ashby, is there a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Hopkinson. Is there a proposal for option 3? No? Okay. In that case, I think we should take unless anybody's got anything else to do, take a vote on option 1. All those in favour of option 1? It's 2. Those against?
No, you would.
3, Estelle?
No, you would do. No. You do a vote to say vote for option 1 or option 2.
I'm guided by what Mr. Hughes has said. Right. So the voting to start with is all those in favour of option 2.
Well, you can do it either way. So it doesn't matter. But the vote is not. The vote isn't vote for what.
Oh, sorry, recommendation.
Yeah, it's not vote for 1 or don't vote for 1. It's vote for option 1 or vote for option 2.
Right. Okay.
That's the vote.
That's the way you want to do it. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So Those who want to recommend option 1 to start with, and those who want to recommend option 2. So that is carried then. So it would be option 2, that 6 months full pay of allowance, special responsibility allowance were applicable with any remaining leave being unpaid. That is a recommendation to go to the Standards Committee. Everybody's nodding, great. Do we need to leave the word members allowance out on option 2?
It would just be special responsibility.
Fine. Yes, sorry.
For clarity, is it 4.2? Is there a typo on the 4.1, 4.2, 4.3?
Yes, but I didn't write it. But I didn't write this. I just. We'll renumber it for standards. But yeah.